It started with the sound of a child's scream slicing through the quiet hum of motorcycle engines. The bikers had just pulled into a dusty roadside diner on the edge of town, the kind of place where the smell of oil and old coffee lingered in the air. Helmets clanked against metal tables, laughter echoed between the rumble of engines until that cry came. A little girl, no more than 7, ran barefoot down the road, her hair tangled and face streaked with tears. "Please. Help me. They're beating my mama," she screamed. The laughter stopped. Every biker froze. The biggest of them all, a man everyone called Bear, turned slowly toward her. His beard was gray, his arms covered in tattoos that told stories of broken roads and broken men. He crouched down, meeting her eyes. "What did you say, sweetheart?" he asked, voice low but trembling. "They're hurting my mama," she sobbed, clutching his vest with both hands. "Please, come quick." Without a word, Bear stood and nodded once. The entire crew, a dozen men and women with steel hearts and leather jackets, dropped their meals and mounted their bikes. Engines roared to life, echoing like thunder through the empty street. The girl climbed onto Bear's bike, small arms wrapping around his waist, and pointed down the winding dirt road that led toward the woods. No one spoke. The only sound was the wind screaming past as they rode toward whatever waited ahead. By the time they reached the old cabin at the end of the dirt trail, the sun had dipped low. Smoke drifted from the chimney, and through a cracked window came the faint, muffled sound of someone crying. Bear motioned for half the crew to circle around the back. The little girl clung tighter to his jacket. "He's in there," she whispered. "My mom." Bear nodded. He pushed the door open. Inside, a man stood over a woman, his hand raised, shouting words so cruel they scraped the soul. The woman lay curled on the floor, one side of her face bruised and swollen. "Hey." Bear's voice cut through the air like a shotgun blast. The man turned, startled. "Who the hell are you?" he barked, but the answer came in the form of heavy boots stepping closer, one after another. The bikers filled the doorway, shadows and muscle and anger wrapped in leather. "You touch her again," Bear growled, "and you'll answer to all of us." The man sneered, drunk and overconfident. "What's this? A biker rescue squad?" Bear didn't raise a hand. He just took a step closer, eyes dark as the road at midnight. "You see that little girl outside?" he said softly. "She watched you do this. She asked us for help because you wouldn't stop." The man faltered. His voice cracked. "She's my wife, this ain't your business." Bear's tone turned cold. "It became my business the second she ran into the street screaming for her mother." The tension hung thick. One of the bikers, a woman named Jade, moved forward and knelt beside the battered woman. "You're safe now," she whispered. The woman tried to speak, but only tears came. The man backed away slowly, realizing he was outnumbered and out of control. Bear nodded to 2 of his men, who stepped forward and quietly restrained him, making sure he couldn't hurt anyone else. Then he turned to the little girl, who stood in the doorway, trembling. "It's okay, sweetheart," Bear said softly. "Your mama's safe now." That night, they didn't just leave the cabin. They fixed the broken lock, packed a few of the woman's things, and brought her and her daughter back with them to town. No police had arrived yet, but Bear made a few calls. By morning, the man was in custody, and the local sheriff, who'd known Bear for years, made sure justice would stick this time. Days passed, and the woman, her name was Emily, began to heal. She barely spoke at first, but her daughter, Lily, became a ray of light in the biker clubhouse. She'd sit on Bear's bike, pretending to ride, giggling as she pressed imaginary buttons. The crew, rough and loud as they were, softened around her. They fixed her shoes, bought her toys, even painted her name on a small leather jacket. Emily would often watch from the doorway, her eyes still tired but full of gratitude. One evening, she finally walked up to Bear. "Why did you help us?" she asked quietly. "You didn't even know us." Bear looked at her, long and hard, then smiled faintly. "Because once," he said, "there was a little girl who cried for help, and no one came. I swore I'd never let that happen again." The truth silenced her. She understood without another word. Months later, the world moved on, but the bond didn't fade. Emily got a job at the diner where they'd first met, and Lily started school, her backpack covered in patches the bikers had given her. Every morning, they'd roar by the school just to wave, making her laugh and blush in front of her friends. One autumn afternoon, a storm rolled in. Bear stood outside the diner, watching the rain pour down when a tiny voice called behind him. "Uncle Bear." It was Lily, holding a small, crumpled drawing. "It's you," she said proudly, showing him a picture of a big biker standing between a crying woman and a bad man. At the bottom, written in a child's messy handwriting, were the words, "My hero." Bear's eyes shimmered. He knelt down, his large hand resting on her shoulder. "You're the brave one, kiddo," he said softly. "You saved your mama. You saved both of you." As the rain fell around them, the rumble of engines echoed in the distance, the crew riding in, headlights cutting through the storm. Lily turned to wave, and Bear smiled, realizing something he hadn't in a long time. Sometimes heroes don't wear badges or capes. Sometimes, they wear leather, ride steel, and answer the cry of a little girl who just wanted her mama to be safe. And from that day on, the town whispered one thing about the roughest biker gang they'd ever known, that behind those roaring engines were hearts strong enough to protect the helpless, no matter the road they had to ride.